Greetings, you've landed at the VUC, IP Communications and VoIP community. We would like to thank Simwood.com for their support. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is from onsip.com, and you can go to getonsip.com for a URL people can click to call you. We've been privileged over the last 5 years to be using the best conference bridge on the planet. Yes, I'm talking about zipdx.com, full color, full featured, full HD conference bridge. Our website, vuc.me on the webs, hosted by bluehost.com. And our worldwide local rate dial-ins are from voxbone.com. Okay, welcome to VUC 538. Every week I think to myself, did we really do 537 before this one? But it's true, we did. And today we've got with us David Wilson, who's the CEO and founder of JamKazam. Hey, David.
Hello, Randy.
Yeah, we can unmute now. It's good. JamKazam is a platform of which there have been several over the last even 10, maybe 15 years that allows we musicians to play together online at distances that vary. And none of them have been particularly great because there's a problem that most of our audience knows very well, which is latency, the internet latency. And I was looking at the speed of light and so on a while back, and the speed of light, as everybody in this room knows, is 186,000 miles per second, approximately, in I don't know which medium, but whatever. Anyway, best you could ever hope to get would probably be about 30 milliseconds for anybody who's a few hundred miles away. I'm just guessing, say 500 to 1,000. I measured my ping time, and that's, put a parenthesis on that and say it doesn't mean that much, but the ping time for me to Paris, Bordeaux to Paris, is 12 milliseconds. Talking to Andy in, where were you, Andy? Manchester, I think. No, I don't know, wherever he is in the UK, that delay was already over, it was called poor. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those ratings, David, and maybe even back up and tell us what the heck JamKazam is? Because I've been so immersed in it the past few days, I forgot that people don't know. Tell us about it.
Well, you know, broadly, JamKazam is a new live music platform and a social network for musicians. And we actually started JamKazam by biting off the hardest thing that you can do first, which is a little backwards, but that's how we roll. So anyway, the first thing that we built JamKazam to do was to let musicians play music together over the internet from different locations as if they're sitting in the same room together. That's the goal. And in some cases that's possible, and in others that's not, for reasons that have mostly to do with latency, as you began to allude to.
Okay, there was a thought about making what I call an appliance. Now, in the VoIP world, we went through appliances. There was the PBX, software PBX, that ran on various computers. People would build the computer in the basement, run the PBX, and then eventually they went into appliances. Yeah, James, let me put him on. James is showing an appliance right now. What appliance is that, I wonder? I can't see.
This is an embedded asterisk box, a cheap Chinese one. It's about 25 pounds.
Right. So what that is that's a PBX that can do more than your telephone company was able to do at their central location 20, 30 years ago. It's amazing. It's just a little thing in a box. And the JamBlaster idea was an appliance as well that would plug into the Ethernet router, and then you would plug audio into it. And did it need a computer, David? What's the rest of the story on that?
On the JamBlaster, no. The JamBlaster actually was a computer and an audio interface that are converged into a single purpose-built appliance that's just for playing online.
So it had a headphone jack or some way to listen as well.
It did. It has a headphone jack. It has a quad-core ARM processor in it. A fair bit of memory, onboard storage for making recordings and things. The reason that we did it, going back to latency, is what we found is, the best latency that we typically see, I mean, there is better, but if you're in a major metro area together, so say there's a bunch of musicians in Paris or, closer to home here, just down the road, say Houston, Texas, we had, a band that formed on JamKazam by meeting each other on JamKazam. Their internet latency to each other was a 20 millisecond ping, which means a ping is round trip, so it was 10 milliseconds one way, which is what really matters. So with 10 milliseconds of internet latency, the interesting thing is that we found the audio processing latency. Forget the internet for a minute and just think about how much time it takes your computer and an audio interface that's plugged into that computer to process the audio, to turn analog audio into digital and vice versa. The average of, literally thousands of combinations of computers and audio interfaces that we've seen on our service so far is about 14 milliseconds. And so what we found that kind of surprised us, a long time ago was the amount of time spent processing the audio just inside your computer could actually be more than the time it took the audio to transit the internet from one musician to another, which is pretty shocking. So the idea of the JamBlaster was to, probably 3 or 4 things. One was radically reduce the time spent processing audio on the computer, and we got the JamBlaster down to under 3 milliseconds full round trip. That's all the way in and out through the app doing everything it's got to do. So that was a massive savings in latency, which gives you more internet latency budget to work with. And then, the other issues had to do with things like usability. So a lot of people struggle to use audio interfaces and get them configured properly. So this one is just plug and play; it just works. And then, some people have older computers; they're still running Windows XP, things like that. So it takes all of that out because it's increasingly a post-PC world. A lot of kids coming up now just have a smartphone or a tablet. And so you could use it with a smartphone or a tablet. You don't need a computer at all at this point.
So the interface would be with a tablet or a phone?
Yes, basically a companion app, which is increasingly common these days. The UI, the interface that you use to control the thing, get into sessions and all that, it can run on a smartphone, a tablet, or a computer.
Absolutely, that's excellent. A quick sharing of experience I've had with friends who are trying to get on, and many of them hopefully are listening now. So they load the app, they get that set up. It works. Oh, here Michael's got a photo. That's nice. There's a shot of the JamBlaster I'm showing on the screen there, and it's got those slick double standard input connectors, which are called, I can't remember.
E-trick combo ports.
Right,
yeah.
combo ports.
Yeah, XLR and 6.3 mil too. Lovely.
Yes.
I wish they had those when I was a teenager, when I had all those. Anyway, that's a great idea. The people are reporting around 8 and 9 milliseconds on their audio interface.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if you could get it down to half or less, that's nice. The biggest problem, though, is incompressible, and that is obviously the speed of light. But even when you divide that by 10, the other problem, as I was talking to you on the phone the other day about, is that we don't have. That's fine if you're in the same city, but you guys are saying, yeah, you could be all over the world. Well, all over the world, we're going to see in a few minutes because we have a drummer in Florida, a bass player in Denmark, a guitar player in the UK near Manchester, I think, Paul.
Yep, that's right.
And he's see, these guys they're so well behaved for musicians. I asked them, I begged them to be silent, and they're silent. And I am in Bordeaux, France. So each of us, there's 3,800 miles between me and the drummer, and most of us and the drummer. Anyway, we'll have that demo in just a moment. But the incompressible problem is that until the internet gets faster and better peered, I guess, and maybe, I don't know if Tim has any comments, but we have a lot of people who know a lot about this stuff. I don't know what direction we have to go in, because it wouldn't be good enough just if everybody had fiber, unless everybody in the world was on Google's fiber, in which case that might help. I don't know. Tim, you have any comments on this? You don't have to, but if you do.
Yeah, sure. I was very interested in what David was saying about the
devices that the delay in the machines being big, and it's I mean, I do mostly speech, but I do internet voice over IP stuff, and I spend a lot of time wondering about where that time has racked up, and on some platforms it really is the device. I mean, Android is hideous in terms of adding 100 milliseconds to anything, whereas bizarrely the iPad is pretty good actually. And the Mac is even better. So you get down to sensible numbers on those, and that's kind of trouble is you don't know when you bought it. So you're gonna have to go and ask musician friends about how bad is the latency on XYZ tablet or XYZ desktop, and then from one production run to the next, Dell will change what audio devices they put in there. So there's a whole series of things you can't control from the technical point of view when you're in this game, I think. But as far as the latency is concerned, I don't know actually. I think I mean, for me, the first hop adds about, I think it's 10 or 12 milliseconds. So if you get that router step down, the ADSL, VDSL, whatever, the DSL step down to almost nothing, which I presume you would if you had direct fiber connectivity, that would help. That would take another 10 out of it. But what I don't know, because I'm not enough of a musician, is how far down you have to get before it's acceptable. And I know what that is for speech, but I don't know what it is for music. I'm ignorant in that huge area.
I think we decided a while back, and just for people who have no idea what we're talking about, the man in the moon effect of old time long distance, where you've got an echo that's so bad that it's like a beat or two away, that would be about 100, maybe 250 would be the horrible 250 milliseconds. 150, you're already hearing a pretty bad echo. Everybody agree with me on that? On voice. But then for VoIP, I mean, once you're in the below 80, you're fine, as long as you're not both talking at once.
And just to be clear, that's completely unacceptable for playing music.
Absolutely.
Right?
Although we're going to see that in a minute because we have 9.
Yeah, so to be clear about one of the things you said earlier, I want to be clear, we haven't said that you can play with everybody all over the world or that it will work for that. In fact, we've specifically disclaimed that and said that doesn't work, and generally playing intercontinentally doesn't work. You're right, it's very random. For example, if I'm on Time Warner here in Austin, I can play with lower latency to somebody in Nashville, Tennessee from here who's on Comcast than I can to a friend of mine who literally lives just down the street, 2 doors, who's on AT&T. So the answer is wildly different, and it depends. And if you're going to solve this problem completely, you can't just do it with a box that solves the audio processing, issues. It's a multifaceted problem, and you do have to bite off kind of all of the portions of it. And there are things that actually can be done to reduce internet latency. I'm not going to get into those, on this particular conference because we haven't gotten into any of that publicly yet. But there are things that can be done, and you can kind of put on your imagination hat and come up with some of those pretty easily. The point about fiber does help because it does help on that last mile. Once you get past that first hop onto the fiber backbone on the internet, you can go a very long way very quickly, obviously, because you are close to the speed of light at that point. And in terms of what musicians can tolerate, there was a really interesting research paper that was done by a gentleman who's a professor at a university in Germany, and he's done a lot of very good research in this area. He does the SoundJack open source software that has been pioneering in this area for a while. Dr. Alexander, I don't know how his last name is C-A-R-O-T. I'm not sure how that's spelled. But in our experience, as a slushy kind of a number, somewhere around 30 milliseconds one way is what can be tolerated. It depends on the tempo, obviously, of the piece, the level of precision, if you're needing to play quarter notes or 16th notes and stay in sync. all of this kind of stuff comes into play. So there's not a hard and fast. But in our experience, somewhere around that 30 to 35 millisecond area, you start to get into trouble, and then things rapidly degrade and then go over the edge of the cliff. And there are things, even in that case, that you can do to help, like, we built a distributed real-time metronome that can help solve some of the problems there. It's a very interesting, thorny problem, multifaceted, and the thing that nobody has done to date is to do everything that you can do. Everybody so far has just built an app and said, voila. That won't really do it. If you're going to really solve this problem and make it a mass market suitable thing that will work for a lot of musicians in a lot of the cases, there are a large number of technology problems that you have to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's some funny things. So Matthew is with us from matrix.org, and he mentioned some really interesting stuff. In fact, I think some of it already scrolled off the screen, but here's where I've started. He says, by the way, an interesting quirk with audio latency, stop typing, is that the lower frequencies have less perceptible latency than the higher frequencies. And plus, for speech, anything less than about 150 milliseconds kind of gets hidden by your brain's audio processing. And that's 100% true. We all know that. Your brain takes over and you don't notice it anymore because we're all used to VoIP and we're all used to horrible delays. For music, you need he says less than 30. He's agreeing with you, or 60 round trip. He measured ping to my IP and says it's 20, so maybe we'll see something shortly on that. Maybe we'll try something. And his final comment was the speed of light sucks, and we certainly can all agree on that. But anyway, yes, so the point is to minimize. I suggest that we try the first demo because first demo is slightly less ambitious in that it's only 3 of us, and we are located in the UK. I not only don't have enough arms, but I've got 3 computers running. Paul in the UK on guitar, and Per in Denmark is on bass. Per is going to play a track because that's the way it works best, and then he's going to play on that, and then Paul and I are going to alternate soloing. It's going to be very short. The name of the tune is, this is by Per, and it's called Brazilian Wax. We're going to start it in just a second. Also, we're waiting for Dennis on drums in Florida. He'll be on the next tune. So let's get this one happening. Everybody's name is up and everything. So there's the JamKazam screen. There's so many videos that they've made, I think we won't bother to do a demo of JamKazam itself unless there's some crazy thing we need to show. So here's what you're going to see. You ready, Per?
Yes.
Okay, so what we need now, so I'll do the first verse, then Paul on guitar will come in on the second verse. Here we go.
Remember the foreplay. I'll start it up now.
Foreplay, oh, that's exciting.
And then, of course...
How many bars? Well, since it hasn't started yet.
This damn thing has frozen now.
Oh, no. And
that is.
How many bars? Yeah, I forgot a few things there. Okay, great. So you see, that's we didn't measure all the ping times and everything there, but they're considerable. Pear is located at something like 1,100 miles from me. The UK, between here and Manchester, I have no idea how far that is, but so we had a little star network going there, and it's better than I expected.
I should say though that YouTube, or rather Hangouts, the codec didn't do you a great deal of justice. It couldn't cope with the complexity of that.
Yeah, you know what? There's an explanation for that, and I've got to slow down my talk here because I was swearing profusely a few minutes ago. YouTube, for some reason, Hangouts just within the last 2 days disabled studio mode.
Huh.
And I mean, I was F-bombing Adam.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's so obnoxious because it went off with no warning. Well, okay, fine. It's a free platform, don't complain. But
you should have told me, Randy. I'm sure it's still enabled for the select few, and we could have probably arranged that if.
Yeah, that's true. Well, anyway, the thing is, it went off. So you switch to studio mode. This is worth saying, actually. You switch to studio mode. And in typical Google fashion, there's a little red line, so you're still in studio mode, and there's a little red line that says, you are now in voice mode. Click here for more information. You click there for more information. It doesn't mention anything about the fact that studio mode is disabled. This is how you don't do this shit, folks. This is how you do not do this. If you have a link that says more info, put some more flaming info there, okay?
Yeah, Randy, I just, speaking for JamKazam very briefly here, I just want to say the audio quality in sessions is excellent.
I'm sorry.
It's very, very good. It doesn't sound like that. So
I'm so
sorry. Conclusions about the audio quality from what you're hearing on the Hangout. In my experience, it sounds, as good as, sitting next to each other in terms of audio quality. The question is really latency, not audio quality.
Yeah.
Sure, and in fact, WebRTC has been taken on board by some companies who do remote contribution directly into digital audio workstations. So I can't remember the name of them off the top of my head, but they actually have a free service where you can have your Pro Tools directly connected via the web to voice talent or a musician who's playing tracks into a live session, and it works great. So the core tech is good.
Yeah, they've just made a set of settings which optimize for conference calls in essence, and those settings are really not optimal for music. I just wanted to get that in there before anyone thought, as you say, that it was intrinsic to the platform. It's intrinsic to the immense mess of wires and complexity that Randy is using, and then plugging it into Hangouts, which is making things, poor, which is at the last minute, which is regrettable, let's say.
Yeah, and with all this audio routing, I see that nothing seems to be getting to ZipDX, or is it? No, it's the other app is not getting anything. So I'm recording silence for all this time. All right. Well, I was going to say there's a local recording, but I'm afraid there isn't. We're going to take a little break and get James to tell us some of the events that are coming up. This will take about a minute, but James, if you could hold forth for that long.
Okay.
Pretend that you're at a parish council now.
Thank you. This is VoiceOver Man in UK, and I'm going to burble for a little bit whilst Randy prepares to get ready for the next segment. And I'm going to tell you about 4 events that are coming up. The first one of which is Kamailio World, which will take place on the 27th to 29th of May in Berlin. Now, Kamailio World is a lot more than just Kamailio, which is one of the core applications upon which big chunks of carrier-grade telecoms are based. We'll get the best of the application developer world all turning up and having a great time at the Fraunhofer Focus Institute in Berlin. So do come along. End of May in Berlin. Weather is wonderful, great company, and the VUC team will all be there. Moving on, the next big event is TADHack Global. This is the Telecom Application Developers Hackathon, which is taking place with a central site in Lisbon in Portugal and 12 other sites globally, taking place over the weekend 13th to 14th of June. And you can either go to one of the sites or you can enter remotely. Big prizes in that one and lots of great tools, great people, and once again I think VUC will be in attendance. Moving forward to later in the summer now, ClueCon, which started off as the big free switch event, is taking place in Chicago, 3rd to the 7th of August. Now, like Kamailio, free switch is one of those building blocks upon which lots and lots of things are built. So it's a lot more than just free switch. It's all the other ecosystems that go along with it. Once again, great people, mostly from the American side of the pond as opposed to the European side. And the last event on our big calendar is Astricon. Now, everybody in the voice over IP world knows what asterisk is because it's the basic building block of just about everything, and everybody starts off on asterisk. Consequently, there'll be loads and loads of developers all in one place, lots of voice over IP celebrities, including, hopefully, Randy, and the queen of voice over IP will be there, Alison Smith, the voice that launched 1,000 ships. And this year, Astricon is taking place 13th to 15th of October in Florida, in the hotel which is bolted on the end of Universal Studios. So you can get away with taking the wife and family as well. They can go and do Universal Studios whilst you do heavy-duty voice over IP. And with that, I'm going to hand you back to Mr. Randy Resnick and the band.
Excellent. Thank you, James. And by the way, I have a new domain name. You can, if you want to know who I am, go to strictlybeta.com. I'm going to write a book about that, but for now, it just goes to my bio. David, I have a specific question that's kind of non sequitur for you, which is when people, we were talking about this earlier before we went live with the guys, that the broadcast starts. It says there's a thing comes up about broadcasting when people are listening, apparently, and if say 700 people were suddenly listening, does that have an impact on the servers? It would.
It wouldn't have an impact at all on what's happening between the musicians in the session, whether it's 1 or 700. Basically, when if you leave your session public, you can make it private so that no one can listen in. But if you leave it public so that people can listen to you, then what happens is as soon as the first person decides to listen to you, we automatically elect one of the applications, one of the musicians, to serve up the broadcast of the audio that's happening in the session. And we do that based on who's got the best available bandwidth and computing horsepower to handle it and everything. So what will happen then is whatever you're hearing in your headphones, say Randy, your computer was the one doing it, then your computer would send a stream up to our JamKazam servers, just a single stream, and it's compressed because well, anyway, so it's a pretty small stream, so it'd be like could be a 192K or whatever, it comes up to our servers, and then our servers will then turn around and broadcast that out and multicast it as many times as it needs to go out to all of the listeners, whether it's 1, 10, or 1,000.
Okay.
And so there's no additional burden placed, essentially on the session.
Okay. Incidentally, I meant to show this in a slide, but I don't have a slide. But this is this is my cabling setup. So as you can see, and of course we have there's a box for the video capture, which JamKazam is running on another machine. And let's see if, yeah, he's here. Dennis, it's a little confusing that you have that funny name, but it's Jay Leno, or Jay Leno, actually. I think it's supposed to. Jay Leno is
from South Carolina.
Right. It's great.
South Carolina, Myrtle Beach.
Anyway, is everybody ready? Let's see. Perry, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Paul?
Yep.
Okay, so this time we're going to go 3,800 miles to Clearwater, Florida. I think it's Clearwater.
South Carolina.
So, sorry, I'm confusing with somebody else.
That's
South
okay.
Carolina. Well, same thing for us Northerners.
Yeah.
No, same thing for us Europeans. So Dennis is going to play a track, and I'm not going to do too much. I might do a note or two of organ, but mostly this is going to be Per and Paul, and we'll see what happens. So we've got thousands of miles between us. Anytime you're ready, Dennis, go ahead. So what was the city in North Carolina?
Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. Myrtle Beach.
I've got the map up, so I'm trying to...
Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful Myrtle
And the
Beach,
directions to... We're going to go to search nearby. Directions from... Typing Bordeaux, France. So here we go. 15 hours of plane trip. Boy, that's latency, 15 hours. Pretty good, really. So yeah, I was a little confused. I want to mention too, I used to have a guitar synthesizer that used MIDI, and MIDI's got lag. Does anyone, you guys might know, how much lag does MIDI have? Several milliseconds, certainly. In the MIDI signal itself. So that thing took a lot of getting used to, and I'm willing to bet, and maybe they're with us today, that some of the musicians who have been playing long enough on JamKazam or other platforms are so used to the latency that they can actually play with it. If it's up there around in the 60s or 70s, I'll bet there are people who can almost pretty much play the music the way it should be played. Stop the presentation. No comments? Okay.
I think you could ask Paul Downs about that, because I know Paul in the UK is constantly playing with people in the United States. I don't know how he does it, but he does. I don't recommend it, but he does. And
well, so what's the secret, Paul?
Very good question. I don't know. I don't really notice it. It's I think you probably notice it if I recorded it via the JamKazam app. and then tried to play it back, I could probably hear it, but I don't actually seem to notice that much latency. It's strange. I can't explain why. I'm sure David may know more than me on that.
Well, I have a question too for you, David, that I didn't realize this the first couple of days, that when you record, apparently you guys do a resync. That's the processing time. Is that it? So that I was told anyway, I didn't hear proof of it, that once you record something with, say, 2 or 3 people, that preparation, it takes sometimes up to 30 minutes or so. When you listen to the file, then it's synced. Is that correct? You use some kind of processing?
We do some processing, but it's not really aimed at syncing. We actually are going to put some stuff in that lets you do that if you want to. But what happens is you immediately have access when you do a recording to what's mixing on your application, which is really your live kind of raw audio, your high-quality non-streamed audio that's coming through your audio interface with the streamed audio from all of the other musicians. And so you can immediately listen to the master mix of that and get access to that recording that way. But after you're done and after you leave the session, the app runs in the background, and what it will do is it will take the high quality raw audio that was captured by each musician's audio interface, compress that still at very high quality, upload all of the stems or tracks that each person was playing to our server. It will mix that into a new master mix, and then download the high quality stems and high quality master mix to everybody's computer who was in the session, which gets rid of any blemishes or audio artifacts or audio degradation in the quality that would happen from the real-time streaming process. So you end up with something kind of as good as what you would do in a home studio, just automagically.
Yeah, and it does sound pretty good. I've actually sort of found the tracks on my PC and then loaded them into sort of Pro Tools and just nudged them left and right a little bit. And yeah, it sounds really good.
Exactly. I think people are starting to do long-distance recording where they're using JamKazam to lay down tracks on top of other stuff that they're doing. So people who are in studios and and whatnot are in fact using JamKazam to do that now, because even if there's a lot of delay, for example, from Bordeaux to South Carolina, Randy, if you were to play a track and then Dennis were to play along with that from South Carolina, he'd be playing behind it by a consistent amount of latency. And so he'd be playing exactly on top of what he's hearing from you, which would have latency, but he'd be playing exactly on top of that. So when you went and grabbed the high-quality stem that he produced, you could then drop that into Pro Tools or Ableton or whatever DAW you like to use and just shift it over by that amount of latency, and it would line up perfectly, and you'd have bingo. You'd have what you need without having to fly him over or do other things. So it's pretty cool, and you can do more real-time kind of collaborative work in recording from long distances in that way with the app as well.
Yeah, I've done that in other situations where you've got maybe different sources of recording and the same thing. And it's funny because that was very difficult to do on tape, because tape is physical and it can shift imperceptibly and so on. Whereas maybe in a movie if it's 2 hours long there may be some problems, but usually if you have an audio recording, even on one of the Zoom things that doesn't cost very much, that actually is very easily syncable with between several sources. Just like if you think of people at a concert filming with different cameras and how you can go and mix those and synchronize them, and you could actually synchronize them with better quality music. We weren't recording locally. I have a local recording that's working. For some reason, the pot on the application, this has never happened before, but today, of course, it went to 0 by itself, and I wasn't looking at it. This is not a physical thing, so I couldn't see it over there. So we're going to play one other thing, and I don't know what we are going to play. I did show, because I'm showing my screen, you can see that you can load a track, and this is how this was done. This is how Per and Dennis were doing it, I think, although maybe they were using a mixer. But here's the track here, and it has, I'm going to put this on for just a second so you can see what happens. The track will play. And I've got a local pod here that deals with that. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to open. There's also a metronome, which apparently is fairly recent, and then you can also open any recording you've made. So I've got a couple of recordings here. I have no idea what this is, but it's going to come up in a second. Pops up. Ooh, what is that? Oh, here's what we were talking about, in fact, right? This is multi-track. I'm impressed. I have no idea what this is going to sound like, but... Apparently only one person was playing and we were recording. I don't know what that was. Anyway.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting...
Damn guitarist again.
It's worth... Yeah, there's always too many guitarists. And there's no good way to put the sheet music in front of them to shut them up either, as the old joke goes. Okay, so let's do something. Is everybody still here, right?
Yeah.
So let's do what other tracks?
We had the F blues.
We
tried that.
That's a good idea. Let's try the F blues and we recorded locally, so I could give people an idea what this stuff sounds like.
I'm ready. Are you?
In fact, yeah. Just a second. I was going to say that for the local recording, I could play the track, but go ahead and start it, and Paul, you and I will take turns or whatever. You can start this time, Paul, because I don't want to no coin tosses here. So, whenever you guys are ready, go ahead. Yeah, bass. Aha.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, this has been a really interesting experience. I want to underline the fact that I've met some really, really nice people on JamKazam, and it's surprising only because I'm on so many social networks that, you know, it's true that we're all musicians, so that helps. But it's just been amazing, and all of the three people here, for example, have had really interesting things to say about JamKazam itself. So I don't know. Maybe we should run through and just get a really quick comment on how they even got here. Per, if you don't mind, how did you discover JamKazam?
Another Dane sought people for it, and he didn't know it either. And so I went on, and we are promoted in promoting in Denmark all that we can. I guess we are about 50 users now, and that's a lot for a small country.
It is. It is. That's great. Paul, what about you?
Well, I found JamKazam sort of indirectly through somebody else's post. It wasn't somebody I even knew, I don't think. But I mean, I just love it because I work sort of strange hours, so I can come in whatever time, and there's usually somebody on I can just have a play with, have a chat with. It's great, and I can only thank the team at JamKazam for such a brilliant piece of software.
Absolutely. Great. So that leaves Dennis.
Yes, absolutely. In the States, social media is probably the biggest thing, and that's how I found JamKazam. It was actually posted in some other posts for musicians, and I haven't looked back since. I've been on JamKazam now over 7 months, and I'm still going to use the program. It's a great program.
That's very cool. I notice, again, while the joking about guitar players, maybe guitar players are the most common instrument, like the accordion of the 60s or something. But the fact is that, and this is to you, Dennis, the fact is that there aren't that many drummers on. So it's good that you're set up and know what you're doing technically.
That's very true, but it is becoming widely known, and a lot more drummers are getting on JamKazam. So it's gonna take off. I really do. I think this program, this platform, is really going to be successful in the future.
Well, I think the only reason that there's so few drummers on is that there's really no place to hold the vodka bottle. Or was it gin? It's been a long time since I've played with a drummer. And the bass.
No, it's a great program. I mean, there are some issues that you get used to, but even the social part of it is what's really attractive. So, yeah, JamKazam, it definitely has some social things to it that make it interesting to talk to other people, especially around the world. I mean, it's great. I was playing with Paul the other night. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing.
Yeah, I like that aspect of it too, and I'm looking forward to using it a lot. So, other than bringing up all our support issues, which we won't right now, let's see if David wants to share any exciting new things that are maybe going to be happening, or not exciting. I don't know. Anything we should be looking for?
I think he's changing his shirt tomorrow.
We try to do as many boring things as possible. We've got a couple things coming up that are very cool. You know, I think in terms of support issues, you know, this stuff is hard, and we're a small team, and we're just kind of getting rolling. So we know there are support issues, and we do our best to knock them down as they come up. But absolutely, there have to be. I think in terms of things that we're excited about that are near term, we're planning to announce something called Jam Tracks in another week or two, which will be a culmination of a lot of effort for us. I think right now what you get into on the service is sessions that are completely unstructured, and so if you're a musician who's capable of getting in and just jamming like you guys were doing on the Blues Jam, that's awesome. Not everybody's comfortable with that, and some people like a little bit more structure. So Jam Tracks are cool. They're multi-track recordings where, just like that recording that you opened, we have We have sourced professionally made multi-track recordings of a lot of popular music by groups like AC/DC and Zeppelin and the Beatles and Stevie Ray Vaughan and you name it, and you can buy those for $1.99 each, and then you have complete control over it. You can mute or unmute any part. So if you wanted to play the bass part, you could solo just the bass part and listen to that and figure it out and play along with it. Then you could turn around and mute out the bass part and have all the other parts play, and you basically have Stevie Ray Vaughan sitting there to play with, which is really cool. Just in the privacy of your own home alone, you can practice and play with a band, even if you don't have a band that way. And then you can actually go online with those and do what you guys were doing, where if Per jumped in on the bass in Denmark, you could just mute out the bass part and he could play that part while you're, for example, playing the guitar part. So we think that's going to be pretty popular and fun. And then I think the next thing after that, the next really big thing after that will be video, which is not far away. And as one of the participants on the Hangout mentioned, sorry, I can't remember who did, WebRTC is a great tech, for video, and we've integrated WebRTC into JamKazam. So soon you'll actually be able to do this, with full video, kind of like a Google Hangout, but with really high quality, really low latency audio natively in the JamKazam application, which will be, I think, a lot of fun for everybody.
That's really interesting. You're not worried, apparently, that the video will cause bandwidth problems.
Well, video, right now we've had people trying to run Skype or Google Hangouts, on the same box that they're running the JamKazam app to get video into their sessions, and that they stomp on each other horribly, and it does create, massive audio quality and latency problems and everything else. So yeah, I mean, you can for sure run into bandwidth problems. I mean, shoot, some people on low-end DSL, in the country, in remote areas can run into bandwidth problems even just with audio. But I think video will be useful. There are a lot of sessions that are just 2 people or 3 people, and there are a ton of people who have plenty of bandwidth to be able to do that. And I think also, from our view, video will be great for delivering music lessons using JamKazam. We've got a lot of people in our community who teach music, because a lot of people who play also teach, have asked us a lot for video so that they can start to deliver music lessons via JamKazam, because they've tried Skype and Google Hangouts and that doesn't really work for them.
That might even, actually, that's maybe one of the most interesting applications you've mentioned so far, in that it doesn't, because you're not necessarily playing together all the time, so you here, play this, da 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 da, and that doesn't have a problem with latency. So yeah, that would be video, audio, good voice quality, which is not always the case on some of the other platforms.
Yep.
That, if you tailor it, I assume you guys will come up with some interesting ways to make it really good for teaching, and that's a very, very interesting application to it, because it's not bothered by the latency mostly. Excellent. Okay, anybody have any questions?
Yes, I have one, Randy.
Yeah.
When video comes, that's not good for you. You told me you were always playing naked.
That's true. It is a big problem. Plus, my harem in the other room might come in once in a while.
Yeah.
But besides that, anybody have any questions for David Wilson on JamKazam before we terminate this?
No, I think
terminate's an ugly word.
I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yeah, I ask questions, and David or Seth is there straight away online.
You folks all know each other anyway, right? I mean, you've probably all 3 of you have spoken to David before.
I've not actually spoken to him, only via the forum. If I've had a problem or something I wanted to know about, and even though I'm in the UK, I seem to get answers really quickly.
Yeah, no matter what time of day.
Yep.
Wow. So support is good. All right,
Yeah,
check
excellent.
off that box. Very good. Anything else, anybody? Well, I want to thank all of the musicians who played, and even thank you even more for those who didn't play, because it could have been really horrible if you were all playing.
Thank you.
We'll be back, meaning this everybody involved here will be seeing you guys online. David, you'll probably be hearing from me. And thanks to everybody in the Hangout who did all their parts very nicely. This has been the VUC, and I think we'll close it out with a very quick, if I can find this, piece of music. Let's see, it's not called 400 Hertz. I wish we could take it out with a tune, but unfortunately, that's not going to be possible. This must be it here. Okay. Thanks, David. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Randy. We appreciate you having us here.
Sorry for the horrible sound. I was very disappointed. Google, I am disappointed in you. You screwed around with the plug-in. It really sucks. Here we go. See you next week. Leading edge of the IP communications and VoIP community, we're at vuc.me on the web. Thanks to simwood.com, who can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is provided by onsip.com. The site at vuc.me is on bluehost.com. We use zipdx.com for our wideband, full-featured conference bridge. And our local rate dial-ins are from voxphone.com. Every Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. See you next week.